I'm Lizzie Harrison for Card Player TV, here today with Senator Al D'Amato. How are you doing?
Terrific, Lizzie. Great to be with you.
So you're out here in Las Vegas. The role you're playing here is the PPA chairman, correct?
That's correct.
So what have you been up to?
Well, we're going to be meeting with all of the great card players. You had one of the world's greatest, Howard Lederer, on, who's also just a great gentleman.
Of course.
And very incisive. And we're going to be trying to rally support for all of the card players throughout America to say to their members of Congress, free us. We're not criminals.
Right.
People have a right to, in their own home, play poker on the internet. And what about parental responsibility? You know, we have some of these congressmen, this fellow Baucus from Alabama, running around saying that it's causing people to commit suicide, teens. Well, what a lot of nonsense. He should be ashamed of himself.
Absolutely.
Attempting to scare people and threaten members of the Congress unless they vote with him.
Is that what he did?
Oh, yes, he did. And he's going to get the moral majority and these other Christian groups after them. First of all, I thought as conservatives, and I think I'm a sensible conservative Republican, that we said we don't want big government coming into our homes and intruding. So shouldn't people be responsible for their children and their utilization of the internet in their own homes? That's
Makes sense.
Right? Number one. Number two, why would you ban adults over 21 from being able to use the internet to play poker, a game of skill, simply because maybe your morals or say you shouldn't gamble?
Especially when they could come out to Vegas or Atlantic City and do just that.
Or go down to the local bingo hall.
Of course, yeah.
Or go down to the local Indian gambling casino.
Slot machines at the racetracks. I mean, it's everywhere.
But what if you don't? Oh, by the way, you can do betting on the races. That's okay. You can bet on the internet.
Because that's obviously a sure thing.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of skill. It seems to me that Howard Lederer and others like him are much more skillful than somebody trying to...
Clearly. I mean, the same people are at the top. Every tournament, you get to know people for a reason.
That's right. So it is a game of skill, one. Number two, I didn't know the government, that we had no problem with inflation, that the war against terrorism has been successfully completed, that there is no energy crisis. We don't have to worry about the soaring prices of gasoline, that Congress should really be concerned in keeping people from using the internet if they want to play poker. And, some of these poker games are 5 cents and 10 cents.
Oh, yeah.
They're not all these high-stake games.
You can play a 50-cent sit and go.
Yeah, there you go. And so I think my conservative Republican friends have it all wrong. And what they're doing is abusing the American people. And I think that in the House of Representatives, on the Banking Committee, I would hope that some of my former colleagues will take a look at what we're trying to do. We don't even have good rules regulating what standards the financial institutions should utilize in terms of what transactions they would be penalized and barred from undertaking. Right. People don't even know. And so here we said, let's get some certainty. Let's not just pass a bill and leave people not knowing what they can and can't do. And here, Mr. Baucus, and I hate to single him out, but he's the leader. He's the leader of this moronic effort to keep people from being able to, in their own home, in the sanctity of their own home, to use the internet for the game of their choice, poker, right? Because he thinks there's something morally objectionable. By the way, this argument about youngsters and how if we legalize and permit gaming to take place, not gaming, but poker to take place, under licensed supervision, that somehow youngsters are going to be ensnared. We have provided and will provide that youngsters under the age of 21 not be permitted, okay? And we can enforce that to a degree of certainty, 99% plus, to keep youngsters off. And every single game would be scrutinized because you do that. In the day of computerization, and the software programs that can be developed. So what happens now is now you have offshore people operating, no license, no regulations.
Can't always get in touch with them. I mean,
and
something
youngsters
happens.
can play.
Of course.
So if Mr. Baucus had an enlightened brain, he'd say, well, how do we control and keep youngsters from becoming addicted?
It seems like common sense.
License, regulate, and supervise. That's how you do it. And by the way, there are tremendous revenues. Instead of trying to cut Medicare payments to doctors, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous, ridiculous, because they've cut them so low, they could raise $2 to $3 billion a year
Easily.
by regulating and taxing, you see, internet poker. And now, instead of hurting the medical community, right, and hurting working families because they're the ones that use Medicare, the fact of the matter is that you could fund by $3 billion a year the cost. That's the kind of thing you should be looking at doing, not just trying to ban and then run around and say, all the people promoting this are evil. Oh, Al D'Amato was a lobbyist. Like he doesn't deal with lobbyists all the time. He should be ashamed of. He doesn't. I guess Baucus doesn't take PAC money. That's Political Action Committee money. If you want to criticize, then you better be Simon Pure. So he doesn't have a race. So he goes and he frightens all of these people on the committee. You better vote this way, otherwise we'll get the moral majority after you. Shame on you, Congressman.
So what did Baucus and his peers have to say when you explained to them, or others like you explained to them, that this should be taxed and regulated? What's
Guess
their response?
what's happening now? The Poker Players Alliance, with our million members, are now beginning to go to and petition, which is the right of every citizen, petition their congressman, particularly those who indicated that they would be supportive of the proper type of rules and regulations, and saying to them, why did you change?
Yeah.
And we're going to be looking at your votes, and we're going to be voting on this issue. In some districts, we have as many as 10,000 active players who are both members and non-members who utilize the internet. So if a person in the Congress gets several thousand phone calls and is informed that the 10,000 members are making this an issue, we think that some people are going to be reevaluating. Because all that's happening now is you're getting pressure from various groups on the right side, and the individual citizen, his and her voice isn't heard. And that's why we formed the Poker Players Alliance.
Right.
So that the little guy, the guy at home who wants to play, he has a voice. And we're directing him. We give him an opportunity to get in touch with his congressman, to call him and let him know, hey, what about my rights?
This is what I think is correct.
Yeah, you want to protect youngsters? We do too. There's a way to do it. License it, regulate it, but don't ban me. And you're going to find that in at least 50% of the homes of the members that we represent, they don't have minor children in their homes. And so here we are, the Congress of the United States. There is no energy crisis. All the problems of the world, the dollar isn't being devaluated. We're winning the war against terrorism.
Gas is at an all-time low.
Huh?
Gas is at an all-time low.
Gas is at an all-time low. So we should now begin to
We should
decide.
focus our efforts elsewhere, obviously.
Yeah, go into a person's house and tell them how to live, because we know how to do better. And by the way, I'd like to know how many of the hypocrites actually play poker and have played poker themselves. But they would ban other people from utilizing the net. Because what about shut-ins? What about people who don't have the capacity to go to a casino? I love going to a casino. Maybe I can afford to go. But supposing I don't have anyone to drive me, and with the cost of driving today, it's too costly for me. And so we're keeping all of these people, 20 million people who play poker in the United States, from having the opportunity of playing in their own home.
It's true, because 10 years ago, people that were shut-ins really were shut out from the world, but now they can do everything they want over the internet. They can go shopping, they can watch movies, and they should also have the right to play poker.
Isn't it?
It just makes so much sense.
Just makes sense. So I think we're going to win this battle. The question is when, and we're going to keep the pressure on, and we are definitely going to petition those members of the Congress who have voted against the interest of ordinary citizens. And so they can say, well, who's sponsoring this, etc. No. The question is, shouldn't individual citizens have the right to participate? The question isn't, oh, there are big groups who are behind it. There are big groups who are working against it. There's a lot of scare tactics have gone into the campaign to get this ridiculous legislation, which was passed in the dead of night with no debate whatsoever. I mean, talk about the American way and how Americans have been duped in the manner in which this legislation was passed. I know you know it, Lizzie. It was attached to a very important bill, a bill to provide security and protection for the ports, the various ports of entry of the United States.
Yeah, that bill was going through.
That bill was going to go through, and no member of Congress could get up and say, vote against it because of this amendment which barred, basically made it impossible for the utilization of the internet and set up these barriers. So there was no real debate on this thing. This was trickery. Legal, but yeah, trickery, shenanigans. So when Mr. Baucus and his people want to talk about bringing discredit to the United States, etc., they brought the discredit by sneaking this bill through. And Baucus' chief of staff was responsible because he was Congressman Leach's chief of staff, and Mr. Leach and his colleagues saw fit to use this mechanism to jam it through. Now, I think he thought he was going to get a great following with the right wing. And so now we have the same thing taking place. So we got this little narrow group who says they speak for all of America. They do not. They don't. They speak for a little tiny band of ideological nuts. And I'm tired of having a little group dictate and decide who's good and who's bad, who's moral and who's not moral. I'd suggest anytime he wants to debate this, I'd be happy to debate with Baucus in terms of the manner in which this legislation was passed and his methodology to keep even reasonable rules so that the people who are to enforce this ridiculous bill don't even know what to do. So that's where we're at. I have more faith in the American people and the Congress of the United States because many members were not aware of the fact that there are programs that can protect young people and keep them off. If that's what we decide, the age should be 21. We can do that.
Right.
So license it, regulate it, and let people say,
safe for everybody.
Let's deal. What's the call for the world?
Shuffle up and deal.
Shuffle up and deal. Now, who's going to win this tournament? Have you decided?
I haven't decided yet, no.
Oh? You're going to be staying and covering the whole tournament?
Oh, yes, I will be here.
Well, I'll be here with you.
Thank you very much for being here today, Senator.
Good to be with you.
I'm Lizzie Harrison for Curse TV.